Okay, we're ready to get started. Welcome, everybody. My name is Tyler Duty. I'm your president. Just kind of curious, how many of you registered yesterday? Raise your hands. Don't be shy. Okay, so I mean, it's part of our fault. We advertise these kind of late, usually like a week before. Part of your fault for being a procrastinator. So my New Year's resolution is to do better about getting these announcements out about these meetings. We're actually required to get a head count the week before. And so I've been guessing at how many people would show up. And I did pretty good at it. Danielle, how many are we supposed to have today? Yeah, in person.
In person,
60. I guess from 50 to 60. So we was looking stinky, that's why. But in all seriousness, so we are trying to get the announcements out about these things in a kind of fashion, but just sharing the logistical burden with everybody. CBC class, you know you're gonna come. Please sign up so it helps us get our head count straightened out. We've got a lot of announcements, so I'm not going to steal their thunder, but I'm really excited about this topic. We've got a lot of interest, obviously. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Augustine to lead our announcements, and then we'll get started. Thanks.
Thanks, Tyler. So first of all, just want to take a moment to thank all of our branch sponsors this year, up on the screen right now. Thank you all for your commitment to this organization. Helps us get all the work that we do here done. If I could have those of you who submitted announcements, please come up. Keeling Middle School, Honors, YMF, Communications. Yes, sir. There you go.
Hey, y'all, I just wanted to say thank you to all our volunteers for the Keeling Middle School Blitz this year. It was another success. It's really, really fun. Especially the second day really lived up to the Blitz name, but it was really successful. The kids had a lot of fun. I just spoke to Natalie, who is the AISD coordinator last week, and she said the teachers were still coming up to her, thanking her for doing the event. So thanks everybody, and we're going to do it again next year. So look for that in the fall. And then I also what's the next? And then real quick in February, we have our Science Mill Engineers Day event. So look for an email blast about that. That was also really fun last year. I'm trying to think of another word to say besides blast, because I just said blast. But anyway, big thank you to Brent and Tyler for helping out at the event, and Griselda as well, and everybody who came. So thank you. Who's next?
Good afternoon. I'm Glenn Goldstein, Texas Section Treasurer and Austin Branch Honors Committee Chair. This year, we're awarding our 25th Annual Engineer of the Year. This is a big award that we really enjoy giving out. We have a host of honors that we like to delve out throughout the year, from the branch level, through the websites, through everything that we do as an organization. And I want you to take a look around, look at your table, look at who's in your firm? We have over 1,500 Austin branch members. Surely you know of people that are successful in this industry who have contributed to the Austin branch or ASCE throughout their career. And reach out to me if you have any questions. If you're not sure who should be nominated, reach out to me. If you want to nominate yourself, reach out to me. We really enjoy reviewing your applications and want to see a lot of you out there and vying for this award. The award will be put out there in February at the TSPE Engineers Award Banquet.
Hello, my name is Cassandra. Please ignore the location. The location has been updated, but I'm here to remind you guys to save the date for our continuing education conference happening Friday, April 12th, 2024. And it will actually be at the City of Austin PDC Center, over by ACC Highland, if y'all know where that is. More information to come, but just keep in mind and remember the date, please. Hello, I'm Catherine. I am YMF Director, and we have quite a few things to share with you guys that YMF has done this semester so far. At the beginning of December, we volunteered at the Texas Food Bank. And then we also have another food bank volunteering coming up January 25th. And also we wanted to put on y'all's radar more information to come, but we are doing our annual ASCE Engineering Week Happy Hour. It will be Monday, February 19th at 5:30 p.m. and it will be at Lazarus on 6th Street. Some other things that we are doing, we have debuted our Young Engineer of the Year Award. Clint has done a lot of work in collaboration with the committee of younger members at the society level. And we are working with the Austin branch and TSPE to have that presented to the Young Engineer of the Award of the Year at the banquet. And just a little bit about it, it is 35 and under. You do not have to be an ASCE member. You just need to participate in civic and work accomplishments. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to ask us about it. Applications are open now, so feel free to send to all of your younger staff and anyone you think may be applicable. I think that's everything. Okay.
And I'm gonna take the liberty here to I don't know why it's not fitting. Encourage you all to follow us on social media. We're active in YouTube. Most of these presentations get recorded and then included on our YouTube page. So check those out. We've got some really great topics from past months. And then as well, we're active on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And we've got a really exciting presentation for you today. There's a lot of really big things that are happening out at the airport. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy some of the stuff that Jennifer is going to share with us today. And special thank you to Foresight, who's our meeting sponsor. And Glenn, you'd like to come up and give us a little insights.
Thank you, Augustine. We're really pleased to be this month's sponsor, and we thank you for the opportunity. We enjoy giving back to the ASCE Austin branch and the society to help them through all the wonderful programs that they host throughout Central Texas. Foresight is an 8-year-old engineering consulting firm that specializes in planning, public involvement, communications, geotechnical engineering, scheduling and project controls, and I'm proud to announce their newest service line, risk management. We have just north of 40 employees on our team. And in March, we celebrated the grand opening of our beautiful headquarters in North Austin at US 183 and SH 45. Foresight is a hub and a DBE firm, and we span the full spectrum of project development activities from marketing, long-range planning, and construction. We work with a wide range of public entities from the regional, state, and federal levels, as well as the private industry. We've been fortunate to prime on several tech stock contracts, and we've worked in 23 out of the 25 districts across the state. Regionally, we've been fortunate to work on some of the most significant local projects here, including the I-35 Capital Express Central project. And we're very proud to partner with the city of Austin on their Journey with AUX program that you're going to hear about today. The comprehensive multi-year effort to expand the airport where I and some of my fellow Foresighters reside. 2024 is going to be a very busy year for all of us, and we'd love to hear how Foresight can help you accomplish your goals. For those of you online, you can find a link to our website through the monthly newsletter, foresightpes.com. And those of you here in person, my card is up at the table, or please reach out and say hi. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Foresight, for supporting this. One last plug before I introduce our speaker. We are going to be doing a sponsorship drive later on this year, basically encouraging all of our existing members to come together to bring more sponsorship to this organization. As y'all may know, the sponsorship dollars allow us to do all the really cool things that we get to do every year, like STEM outreach and supporting YMF, all of our younger members and things like that. So every dollar kind of helps to expand our ability to do those cool things, and look forward to seeing y'all support the organization in the future. So next up, we've got Jennifer Williams with AUS, Austin-Bergstrom International Airport, and she's going to give us an update on the expansion program and the journey with AUS. Give a round of applause, please.
Thank you all. Thanks, Glenn. Good to see a couple faces in the room that I know. I see Glenn all the time down the hall, so appreciate everything Foresight's doing to support AUS. Huge thank you to ASCE for those of you who came out to Junior League of Austin, helped with Codes for Kids. I'm actually treasurer-elect for Junior League of Austin in my spare time. And so super exciting to see that and y'all's support for that. So really appreciate. Okay, so we're going to get into a little bit of everything about the airport today. Obviously, we'll get into some projects. That's why a lot of y'all are here. There's a procurement schedule. Don't worry, it hasn't changed. But we'll get into a lot of different things and fun stuff going on so you guys can understand changes that the airport's made over the years, and some changes we've made fairly recently. So history, we were an Air Force base back in the day, not a greenfield site, definitely brown. A lot of challenges when we're going through and going to build our tunnel and the new concourse out there on the airfield. But it's exciting challenges for us, really getting into what is and what was the Air Force base as we start to do a lot of grading out there for the development program that you'll see here shortly. But big thing for us is we opened this commercial airport in 1999, so we'll be hitting 25 years fairly soon of the building. The building was constructed in 1994. And so we're really excited. If I could build anything for $585 million, that would be awesome, because we're building a lot more than what we were building back in 99. It's a lot more expensive. So as we go through our original terminal was 25 gates, really up until 2019. So had 25 gates on the terminal. It was served to support 11 million annual passengers. That number is key, okay? 11 million annual passengers. In 2016, I started the master plan and led that effort for AUS and went through a 2040 master plan of what the airport could look like in the future. What was that growth rate? FAA would only approve us at about 4.5%. That's also key here in the next couple slides. And then we did a terminal expansion in 2019. We added 9 new gates. So we've got 34 gates today on the BJT. And it was designed to serve 15 million annual passengers. So we did get a capacity increase with that, really exciting. And then COVID hit, and, you know, we had planned long before us starting the 9-gate expansion that we needed to do the next thing. We knew the growth in Austin was getting really crazy. It was really exciting to go through a lot of these things, but like, what is that next step for us? Making sure that we're planning out the facilities so we don't have a lot of sunk costs as we're going through this. Really making sure everything, it's a small city that we're managing out there. We've got a fire department, we have APD, we do all of our own utility work inside the airport, we maintain our roadways. That's not done by the city. So while we are city owned and operated, we do have that governance of FAA. So we can't go out and do anything on that airport without their approval. We also don't use taxpayer dollars to do any of the work that we do at the airport. We have to be self-sufficient, so we're an enterprise department with the city as well, and we manage our own bonds. So trying to get through a lot of this, that's why you don't see anything for the airport on a ballot anywhere. We do all that ourselves, and it has to be self-sufficient. So what are some of the fun things that we've been changing, doing, working on? Mobility is a huge thing for us, obviously, right? We're an airport, but also mobility assistance, making sure our passengers can get through the airport in whatever way that they need to. We did notice in 2021, when we started to have that return from COVID, getting a lot more passengers through the airport, those that needed mobility assistance became a lot more of a challenge. We don't have the square footage to be able to handle. There was a lot of operational issues where you could go up to, say, American or a Southwest ticket counter, and if you needed a wheelchair, then you would have to kind of stay in that area and hope that that person could find you in a sea of people. And it just became something we really noticed, how can we kind of fix that problem, right? My background is a civil engineer in transportation, and so definitely problem fixer. So we came up with the idea for this mobility lounge. And so now if you ask for a wheelchair or you need assistance, you're actually going to this one area. All the wheelchair folks go to this one area. They know exactly where to go. Even our folks that need mobility assistance have definitely caught on. They know that they should go into that space. And if you're ever picking up a loved one, you can say, go to this space. And it's right by the front door upstairs on the ticketing level. And you can just come in the door right there and grab your loved one and head out the door. So it's something that we really cared about, wanted to make the room for. While we may be short in square footage, we think that this is really, really important for our passengers. On the flip side of that, we added a mobility assistance zone. So it's downstairs on the curb. So if you can't make that walk, or you need that assistance of making that walk either to the rental car facility, out to the TNC area, because y'all know it's a long walk. Y'all probably don't know. You live here, thankfully, right? But it is a long walk, like one of our #1 complaints. Although I'd like to say that Vegas is a lot longer than ours. But the mobility assistance zone's downstairs. So if you called your car rental company and said, hey, could you come and drop the car at the curb, that they would be willing to do that. The TNCs can pick up in this mobility assistance zone area if you need that assistance as well, to not have to make that long walk. We do have a mobility tram as well inside the red garage, which is the closest garage to the terminal. So that can take you back to Conrack to pick up your rental car, or out to the blue garage as well. So other fun things, beats and bites. We have a lot of live music in the terminal. When we did a lot of outreach, public outreach during that master plan process in 2016, 2017, by far, it was one of the big things that they wanted to keep. We want to keep the local food, we want to keep the local music, and we want to keep the walkability of the airport, the ease to get in and out. That's what we've heard. So we're trying really hard to make sure that we keep those things as we progress through the program. We've got 8 music stages around. So we do about 1,000 music performances a year. So it's really exciting. We hosted one of the first virtual airport music festivals. We participated in that during COVID. So we had somebody come out to that main stage right there upstairs on the concourse, and we broadcasted it. It was really interesting, something we'd never done before, but it was really cool to see Austin's airport on a world stage in regards to a music festival. It's definitely not something you're going to get at a lot of other airports. The bites, I love the facts at the bottom. I think it's hilarious. A lot of people are like, oh, you know, do people still eat the breakfast tacos at the airport? Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Almost like 800,000 breakfast tacos a year. So the tons of brisket, I also think is hilarious. And so, you know, if you're flying out for Christmas, you can pick up a full brisket at Salt Lake and take it with you on the plane and reheat when you get there. So they come in like a vacuum sealed pack. So it's like, that's all we see going around the terminal, like right now, all the way through the weeks. So it's pretty hilarious. Art is another really big thing that we really want to make sure that we keep in the airport. We do changing and rotating art. That's something that we actually maintain in-house. And then there's the permanent art, and that's our partnership with economic development and art in public places. So 2% of our construction costs for our capital program have to go to public art. And so you've seen a lot of different arts popping up around the airport, and a lot of that has been in support of the 9-gate expansion that we just did. And obviously we'll have a lot more coming. We have a lot more art to put in. We have a lot bigger program that we're going to be doing. So some of the fun things that we have going on at the airport in regards to art, new experiences. So we just did this digital wayfinding. All you have to do is go to the website. You don't have to download an app or anything. That kind of tells you where everything's at, if concessions are open, when they're supposed to be open. If they're not, we find them. Don't worry, we understand the frustration. But we opened a pop-up experience for Chase Sapphire card members. I have the Chase Southwest card. That does not work. Just FYI. You have to be like really high at Chase. But it's really cool. It's out on the deck, on the terrace that we had built with the 9-gate expansion. And then one of our local artists, if you've ever been down the 9-gate expansion and you go down to those restrooms down there, there's a lot of like green artwork on the walls. It's done by Mila Sketch. That was not an AIPP. That was something Hensel Phelps had put together as they went through the construction process. Thought it was a really neat way to incorporate art into the restroom facility. And she's gone back through and done augmented reality. So very similar to like Pokemon Go. So you like hold your phone up on the wall and it 3-dimensionally comes through your phone. So it's pretty neat to see something like that happening at the airport as well. So air service, the numbers. I'm all about the numbers. I'm an engineer. Okay, so in 2022, we had KLM. KLM was supposed to come right before COVID. They were supposed to go to Paris literally a month before, and that never happened. And they have not come back with a Paris flight, but they are flying into Amsterdam on that KLM flight. We had Lufthansa return back. A lot of those international flights just, you know, it was a big change for them with COVID and not having those international, having folks to be able to come in and out of the US or over into Europe as well. So it's really exciting to see. We've got new airlines that have come in 2023 with Copa and Viva Airbus. They're going to be coming in 2024. A lot of new destinations, new flights. The big thing here is in 2022, we had about 260 daily departures. Before COVID in 2019, we had roughly like 190 departures a day. This year, we're hitting about 280 departures a day in a facility that was built for 15 million annual passengers. So exciting new nonstop destinations. I mean, I want to go to all of these, so I need to get on the train and put my leave requests in for the year. But definitely some good nonstops that we've got. From an environmental perspective, we were just in Long Beach a few weeks ago and got our level 3 carbon accreditation for the airport for our 3rd year in a row. So it's really exciting. We were one of the first large hub airports to get the accreditation to be at that carbon neutral footprint. So we do, their requirements don't necessarily require us to be carbon neutral on site. So one of the things that we do is buy wind power through Austin Energy to do the offsets. So it's really exciting for us to be able to do that. We're challenging ourselves right now in regards to our environmental stewardship as well as sustainability. We're going to be putting out new sustainability goals for the airport. We just finalized those a couple weeks ago. They're going to be one of the core guiding principles of what this program is going to be about, what the airport expects out of our design and construction teams as we move forward to get very creative on how we do this. We're also going to be taking those sustainability goals and making them project specific. So making the intent, what is the intent of the goal? Let's say it's, I guess, electric vehicle parking. I think what we have in there right now is 10% of public parking would be charging. That doesn't necessarily make some sense in certain specific projects. And so we're saying, what was the intent of this and what are we going to do? So we're going to be breaking those sustainability goals down and actually making them metric specific in each project. So we can really say, if we're going to go carbon neutral and we're going to do it on site and not do the offsets, what is this project specifically reducing and by how much? That's something we've done a lot of research on. We haven't really found that at any other airport. SFO, Portland, Seattle, they're all on the forefront of sustainability, and they are not necessarily tracking these metric-oriented goals for a project. So we're excited to really say, hey, this is what this project did, and this is how it reduced it, and by this much. So excited to track some of that. We have a lot of challenges, obviously, with climate resiliency at airports. Luckily, we don't see a lot of this, but that is our airport. It did happen, if anybody was here, 2021. And these, what we ended up having to do was call Public Works and say, hey, do you guys got any dozers you can bring over to the airport and help us scrape the snow off the runway? We don't have salt trucks. We don't have any of that stuff to be able to handle. So we do de-ice the planes, but we only de-ice about 40 days out of the entire year. It's very different than a Denver operation, a Seattle operation. So it does affect us a whole lot as we're going through this, but really looking at like, what is climate resilience look like at an airport? It's not just carbon neutrality, but looking at a lot of different backup plans, emergency plans, making sure that the airport doesn't shut down when things like this happen. We were able to respond very quickly and get the airport back open and operational, I think within 3 hours. So we were really only down for those 3 hours. And I've been there 11 years and I've only seen it really shut down twice. One was when the tower flooded, not our fault. They put it in a hole. It was a 50-year flood area. So it's like, this is not good for anybody. And then when we shut down in 2021, just the runways had shut down. So trying to get them back open quickly. So another one of our challenges is the economy. Obviously, you know, we've got a lot of local economy challenges, the cost of living, all the construction that's going to be going on. I've done a lot of these talks around the city so far, and a lot of them are partnered with TxDOT. A lot of them are partnered with Cap Metro, and really looking at what the workforce in Central Texas is going to be able to handle with the amount of work that's coming in Central Texas, not just from the public sector perspective, but then the private too, right? We've got these towers and everything going up. We've got Samsung. We've got all these things happening. It's a lot of work in Central Texas. So we're really trying to do our part to make sure we're doing as much outreach as possible to get these firms, these construction firms, to bring in the workforce to be able to handle not just our own projects, but everybody else that has work going on as well. Inflation's a big one for us. It is up and down, and we have started to see it kind of flatten out a little bit with some of our current projects, but it's definitely not where it was before COVID. So it's a big increase in cost as we're going through these things too. I mentioned workforce planning. It's definitely labor intensive to be at an airport. We run 24/7. Kind of say it's like a mini jail because you can't have the public get any of the tools, and the tools can't get to the public to take on the plane. So, yeah, you got to keep the kindergartners all together. I have a 5-year-old, it's okay. And then, you know, we got to make sure everybody's got what they need, but then to try and do construction a facility that's open 24/7 is extremely difficult, and to put all the security requirements on top of that. So like everybody that comes and works within the secure area of the airport has to have a badge, and they have to pass a 10-year background check. That's very hard to do for a lot of people in our community that are painters. It's very difficult to find a painter that can pass a background check. And so that's the other reason we're trying to get out there, get these expectations out there for these firms. So it's like, hey guys, when you're bringing people in, this is what the requirements are going to be. Let's try and be ahead of it. Airline infrastructure. So airport capacity, the business model, the airline business model is very important to our airport and why we're so successful on keeping fares as low as they are in Austin. So if you compare us to a large hub, like a hub airport, say Charlotte's about 92% American Airlines. Ours is roughly, our highest is 36%, and that's at Southwest. That's with Southwest, and Delta is getting there right behind it after some announcements that's happened this week. So we don't have a majority stakeholder in our airline, and what that happens is the airlines are competing price-wise and destination-wise, frequencies, which means the number of flights back and forth from the same city. So like we fly Dallas constantly all day long. Southwest is flying that, American is flying that, they're all flying Dallas. So they're competing, they're having to compete against each other, where if you had one airline that was more dominant, they could charge a lot higher prices. So there's that component to it. And then there's the ULCCs, and those are our ultra low cost carriers. That's Allegiant, Spirit, Frontier, those folks. Trying to keep those being able to make Austin affordable to be able to fly into and out of, because it just solves one of our other audiences, right? That's like the families that are all going to Orlando to go to Disney World. So just cautious if you take an Allegiant flight, right? It's just full of families. Or they're flying back from Vegas and it's like a whole bachelor party and they're all hungover when they come off the plane. So it's one or the other. But making sure that those airlines have the ability to fly in and out in an affordable way also keeps kind of everything just kind of smoothed over in regards to how many airlines we have and what the market share really is in Austin. So that's why it's so important for us. Lounge space. You know, as things change and customer experience changes, I don't know about you guys, but I didn't see a whole lot of dogs in the airport like 10 years ago when I started, 11 years ago. Now they're everywhere, right? So things have progressively changed. Mother's rooms are obviously a thing. I don't know why they weren't a thing before, but they are now, thankfully. But children's play areas, we're starting to see a lot of those come up into airports. So we're looking at all of these different customer experiences that people are wanting in airports. And now that you have to get there a little bit earlier, it makes more sense for us to be able to provide that, right? Before, when we weren't as busy, it was like, okay, well, I get here like maybe roughly an hour before my flight. I don't have a whole lot of time to do a bunch of things. We're an origin destination airport, which means you start in Austin, you end in Austin. You don't really connect. And one of the big things that we saw in 2022 was the connecting percentage increased from about 5% connecting to 22% connecting. And that was a lot of Southwest and American pushing more flights through Austin, and it made sense for them to kind of connect some of those flights. So we are seeing some connecting traffic now, which changes operationally how we do things in the airport. So it increases our restrooms counts, but it doesn't help us. It doesn't increase anything on the front of house, right? Those people aren't going through security, but they're using the restrooms now a lot more. So we really have to look at even the percentages and how the airlines redo their business models and how they work through an airport. We have to see it from an operational standpoint, say, oh man, how is this really going to impact what we're doing? And not a lot of people really understand that side of it. So our current reality, we capture anywhere from Waco down to the Valley in Austin. And so we're roughly 21 counties is what we serve. And so we're not just a City of Austin airport, we're a regional Central Texas facility. We're the airport of choice for Central Texas. So we've definitely seen this grow over the years. When I first started, we were about 15 counties. So we're definitely seeing a more robust folks are driving up north, south, east, west to come and want to fly out of Austin. So we need to make sure that that continues as well. In 2022, we had 21 million annual passengers. So I said 15 was that number. That's what this facility is designed for. We're efficient in what we're doing. We're trying to be more efficient because we can't build things fast enough. And you'll definitely see a lot of this continued growth and everything that's happening. This is the growth in the passenger levels that we've had since 2003. I started in 2012, so I've never known anything except extreme growth at the airport in Austin, which is probably a good and a bad thing. But just us, growing 10 to 12% year over year. Just to give you some background, airports typically grow around 3.2% year over year, and we're growing at 10 to 12% year over year. Between 2019, a lot of other people ask, oh, have we recovered from COVID? Yes. 2019 was 17.3 million annual passengers before COVID, and we're at 21.1. So even between those 2 years, we grew at 22%. Like, it's unheard of. So this is why we just can't build things fast enough. We need to build a lot more, but a lot of that plays into the stakeholders, what the airlines' business models are, because ultimately they're the ones that pay for a lot of the infrastructure that goes in. So why haven't we been able to catch up? I kind of mentioned that before, but you kind of see here, this is, I'm over the planning team in Austin, and we've been forecasting obviously growth at the airport for a very long time, but multiple times, especially with COVID happening, we've looked at different levels of forecasting. So the red line was our master plan forecast. That was about 4.5%. That's the red line. So you can see where it started in 2018. That's where we thought we would be. Then you had the sink in 2020, 2021. So the blue, green, orange lines, that's what we thought we would recover out of COVID. Nobody thought that Austin was going to recover as fast as we did. And there was really no foresight into what was going to happen after something like this. We knew that when in 2008, we did have that decline with the economy, but we bounced back really fast there. So we knew the economy could handle it. We just weren't quite sure if air traffic could handle it. Not a lot of people wanted to get on a plane, all of those things. So we weren't quite sure. So this is why we couldn't keep up to come out of COVID. The black line is where we're actually forecasting today from a planning perspective. Okay, so one of the other things is seat counts. Seat counts is the airlines bringing metal to Austin. We still have 34 gates, but why can we continue to grow? How do we push people through? Why is this so crazy? You'll see here on the left side of the screen, AUS is the fastest growing large hub airport in change in seats. And so what that means is we have 38% more seats than we did before COVID in 2019. All that is the planes, the airlines are switching the metal out for larger aircraft. And it's called upgauging. And so you're not flying on those RJs that are like 50 seaters, they got one aisle on one and two on the other, you're three across, 3 rows, about 150-ish people on a plane compared to the 50 that we were seeing in a lot of the RJs back in the day. And so this is why even at 34 gates, we can handle a lot more traffic on the plane side, on the secure side. But what we didn't anticipate when they were doing all this upgauging in 22 was the effect it was going to have on the front of house. And when we say that, that's the processing and the security side, which is why we had those crazy lines in 2022. And hopefully none of y'all got stuck in this, but I'm sure there's some of y'all out there, and I apologize. And we're getting better. But it's still, this week is going to be rough. So make sure you get there early. Interesting enough, 18 of the last top 20 busiest days at AUS are in 2023. So the only 2 that weren't was F1 last year, and then Thanksgiving last year. So we're continuing to have the growth. And what does it look like? So on an average, like on a daily basis, we have anywhere from 50 to 70,000 people going through the airport. You can see there, the second line, that's the same amount of people, daily visitors at the Magic Kingdom in Florida. They have a lot more space. Luckily, not all of our people are staying there all day either. So we have a little bit of room, but it's interesting to see it's the same amount of people going through the Magic Kingdom in Florida. What do we want to be when we grow up? That's this. So we're setting ourselves up to be Denver, Atlanta, where you have multiple satellite concourses with a tunnel that would take you from the Barbara Jordan terminal out. You'll see that Concourse B is what we're focused on in the AEDP right now. But this would be able to get us to an airport the size of Denver, the size of DFW. So are we able to do that in Austin as the Metroplex does start growing together with San Antonio? Yes, we're able to handle a lot of that traffic. So the program, we talked through a lot of this already. I'm gonna skip this slide. But what are our projects that are going on? So we know what we need to get to. We know we're behind on the infrastructure. We know we need to continue and we need to build really fast. But how do we deal with today's issues as well as build for the future? So we have a lot of enabling work to do, as well as optimization work to optimize the existing square footage we have today, make it more flexible for things. So we have this Westgate expansion. We found out that we could extend the terminal and get 3 new gates on. This is an enabling project for taking the 3 center gates down when we start to build the tunnel out. So it's exciting. We're putting in a children's play area in there. There'll be a space for concessions, new concessions going in, as well as some sort of credit card club. So, and there's some renderings of it. And that's kicked off and is under construction. The next thing, the guts of an airport, is the baggage handling system. Most of the time you build an airport around your baggage handling system because it's so complicated. Not a lot of airports have had that ability to do it because during 9/11, they really changed the security requirements from a baggage handling perspective. So our guys are really managing this entire facility you're seeing here in a space that's 8 feet high. So we have multiple lines going over top of each other. It's a big safety issue for our guys to maintain it. What you're seeing in these pictures is the new baggage handling system that we have under construction today. So it's exciting to see conveyor belts that don't have grease all over them. They're brand new. So, but your bag travels roughly 1.5 miles to the plane. So when you drop it at ticketing, it's going about 1.5 miles through the building to get out to that aircraft. The west infill, so this is where checkpoint 3 is today, which is a bridge. We're going to fill in that hole that's there today, take down the bridge, and put in 6 to 8 new security lanes, similar to what's at checkpoint 1 on the opposite end of the building, and then be able to add club space on the top as well. And that area would be on the secure side as we build out Austin and the airport. So we're making sure that we're building things to be flexible. So it won't be a checkpoint forever. So making sure that we're putting walls and columns and all of that in the right space now so we don't have a lot of sunk costs in the future. The atrium infill, this is filling the floor and over bag claim. Luckily, there's no architects in the room, right? Okay, this has been a big issue. So filling in the floor, not having that natural light going all the way down into bag claim, I get it, but function over form is where we're at right now. And so filling this flooring gives us a lot more square footage, and we'll be using it for flex space between queuing for the checkpoints as well as the queuing for some of the ticketing, especially in our crowded areas. The international arrivals, this has been a big issue because we have 3 wide body aircraft, which are the big boys coming in from Europe. They all come in within 10 minutes of each other. I don't know who timed that. That was a bad idea. And so now we have roughly 300 people getting off each one of those planes at the same time, trying to process through our international arrivals facility. We want to continue for Austin to be an international city, and so we need to do a project to really relieve a lot of that pressure, make sure we can push people through in a quicker time. So we're actually going to be taking this carousel out that you see here, and we're going to be flipping. So right now it's bags first. That's what our Customs Border Patrol thought was the right answer for airports. Was you go to the carousel, you get your bag, and then you go to process. We're going to be flipping it back. We don't have the space to do bags first. So you're going to be processing through, getting your bag, and then processing into the country. So it'll be a two-step process, but it'll really relieve. We can't get the bag. The issue is we can't get the bags fast enough to the facility because the walk is so short. So hence you go to Heathrow, you have a heck of a walk from the plane to get down to customs. By the time you're there, your bag's there, everything's there. But we have such a short amount of time to do the walk. And these folks, when they're flying in, they're in big containers. They got to offload the container, open the container, get all the bags off. It's not just like your normal domestic facility. So they just operate a little bit different, which is one of the reasons why it's a little more complicated for us. So the program, this is it. I'll start with everything in blue will be under construction for the next 10 years. So that's exciting. You'll see in the middle there, that's the existing Barbara Jordan terminal. We've talked about a lot of some of the projects today. We'll be adding another parking garage. The garage procurement's going to go out tomorrow for design. So that's exciting. We have a new central utility plant that's currently open for design. And then we'll be building Concourse B out there. That's the first step in building those satellite concourses for the future with a tunnel to get out there. And then the midfield taxiways are being relocated. So you'll see the Concourse B where it's at today is sitting over top of those midfield taxiways. They're going to move further south to account for the satellite. And we've set it up so that we can get another Concourse C in between the midfields and where Concourse B is today. We've done a rough grading plan for the future to know that you can only have about a 1% grade on a taxiway at max. So we need to make sure that everything from the BJT sloping down to those midfields can connect, because at some point in time, it'll all be impervious cover with those concourses in between. So making sure that we don't have a ton of sunk costs with our apron and our expenses in the future to build out, and obviously making it easier for us to build. This first gate is expensive because of the amount of enabling work that we have to do, and we're just a little bit far behind. So procurement schedule. If any of you have been following the program, this hasn't changed. This is up on the website now. For if you go to the Fly Austin website for the AEDP, we're keeping it up there, and that way if there's any changes to it, that is the most recent up-to-date version. This has not changed since Industry Day. And then these are just a list of upcoming procurements based on the professional services piece and rotation list. And I grayed out November, but it doesn't look very gray on the screen, but that's done. Small wins, guys, we're getting them out. So what happens next? Procurement process. I'm so excited for us to finally get these small wins and go into procurement, because it means like we're really getting things done, and we're excited about kicking all of this off. And most of the time you want to see my face doing these as often, because we have so many procurements out, I'm not gonna be able to come do them. So I get a little bit of a break. But we're excited to really do this and really manage those expectations with the public. So we really want to make sure that when that red garage comes down for us to push out the AD hall, is there a solution? Once the public starts to see constructions happening at the airport, they're going to feel somewhat of a bit of a relief that something is happening. And right now they're just not seeing something happen. There's a lot happening behind the scenes. There's so much planning effort, and you guys know all these procurements are going to be going out and design's going to be happening. But until we start moving dirt where the public can see us move dirt, there's a perception out there that just not a lot's going on. And so how do we push along, especially the front of the house, so that we can show, hey, no, there is a lot going on. So that's why we're pushing a lot of the AD hall procurements and making sure we get to construction where the public will be able to see it a little bit quicker too. I think that's it. You guys have any questions? Thanks for having me. Yeah.
So are you still planning to make the runway and relocate 671?
Yes, it is still in the plan. Yeah, so right now the runway is 9,000 feet. For us to land the big wide body planes at a 90% payload, we would need 10,000 feet. They normally land on the long runway, which is like 12,500 feet long. That's more than enough. That was built for the bomber planes, when it was the Air Force Base. And so they land on that one. If they're not at weight, then they land on the other one too. But for us to be able to have the resiliency between and be able to shut one down, if we want to keep the loads the same, then we would need to extend the runway and ultimately either bury 71 or relocate it. So it's very similar to something Fort Lauderdale did. They actually buried Highway 1 and it goes under the end of the runway. So. Good question, yes.
Kind of a two-parter. You said that the FAA capped you at a 4.5% growth.
Yeah, great. So nice.
So is there any remedial action to counter the 22% growth that you've had since 2019? And then with that, like there was the 22 or 5% to 20% of connecting flights. So how is that, like they didn't consult you on, we're now going to be connecting through Austin.
Yeah, that's
So
correct.
how do you mitigate like airline operations with airport planning?
Yeah, it's a very strategic partnership. And if anybody's in planning, right? I've done roadway planning before. I've done the planning on the civil side in the past, but the airlines have no idea what they're doing after this next 6 months. They load a schedule in 6 months and then they start to work on the next 6 months. So there isn't a whole lot of foreshadowing of what's going on, and it is 100% under the radar because from a competitive advantage. So they can't let things get out within certain timelines because of that competitive advantage. I mean, if one knew they were going to start routing to, Mexico, then another one's gonna be like, well, I'm going to compete for the same space. So there's a little bit of that happens. In regards to the forecasts for FAA, so the FAA caps you at a percentage, it's 10% within the forecast you submitted. So we submitted a forecast of like 8% growth, which I mean, that's a little much, right? Anybody's done a traffic study, could you imagine doing 8% growth on a traffic study? But they capped us at 4.5, which is the highest growth percentage they'd ever approved before. They come out with a TAF, which is a terminal area forecast every year, and their planners are forecasting growth for all commercial airports in the US. And they actually reduced us down to like 2.5% this year. And our funding's based off of that. So yeah, it ties to it. It's not a fun discussion to have for sure. Yes. Oh, yeah, they're slower. That's not fun. So it is a new thing that TSA is coming out with. They do look very new and they do detect more things, but the intent is the return bins. So you'll put your stuff in a bin, and usually, you have to walk down, put it in the machine, and then like they would stack up at the end, and then it's like the shopping carts. Like who puts their shopping cart away, or do they leave it on the curb? Like, did you take the bin back? Did you stack it nicely, or did you just leave it all? Well, these actually return the bins, so it reduces the amount of time TSA has to go back and forth with the bins all day long. But it also once something goes through the scanner, if it does detect, it automatically pulls it off and puts it down the line too, and continues to have things going through. So it is supposed to be faster, but the folks running it also have to be informed about how to make it faster. And that's what a lot of the airports are struggling with right now. So I went through, I watched it, and I was like, yeah, it's technically a little slower right now, but hopefully it'll get quicker. Yeah. Yes. It's 150 feet wide, so. Oh, I'm supposed to repeat the questions. Are you still expected to cut and cover on the tunnel? Yes, it's really wide. Yeah.
Regarding the tunnel, should build out like more concourse. That's
Yeah.
what the plan, continue doing the same methodology to try to cover, or you guys consider alternative, doing a deeper, longer tunnel.
So, we haven't necessarily gotten into a lot of that. We're kind of hoping the construction teams will come back to us with ideas on solutions on some of that, and the design teams. But what we are anticipating is the build out of the first section of the tunnel, even to just Concourse B, will be able to hold a full build out of Concourse B and a full build out of Concourse C. So we're anticipating a 50 million annual passengers going through that tunnel, whether that is through the walkway or the APM train. Right now, we can't undercut the BJT. We've done a lot of research and a lot of analysis on it, and it's just really not feasible to do it. So we're gonna end up having to shift that line for the APMs of the people mover. So like the train in Denver, it'll actually have to turn when it gets up to the BJT. And because of that and the swing that it would need, it's gonna probably end up being its own separate tunnel. So it may not be part of the AEDP because it really is only truly needed for Concourse C. Because we weren't going to put anything in it. We just figured if they were all going to be together and we were going to building everything together, it would make sense to do it at the same time. But we think it's going to be offset pretty far off the existing tunnel alignment for the baggage, utilities, and the pedestrians walking. Yes. I love your sweater, by the way. Oh, perfect. I just thought it was a regular day, but.
As the airport roads, how is the capacity of the highway getting to the airport?
That's a great question. TxDOT, are you in the room? We need to be friends again. Yeah, so right now TxDOT actually has a project to put in a dedicated entrance into the airport. So you'll actually make the decision to come to the airport going south on 183, north on 183, or was that eastbound on Highway 71 at that interchange. And then you'll come off and it'll be its own dedicated frontage road, going in front of parking spot and then into Spirit of Texas and into Presidential. So you won't be making that decision point. It's definitely going to help us to be able to streamline the traffic, still being able to go through and make the U-turn at 973, especially if there's accidents. That's been one of our big issues recently is, you know, the accidents they're having on 71 is delaying people from getting into the terminal. So it's definitely been a challenge for us and we're starting to track what that looks like. Now getting out of the airport, we have a solution. It's not pretty. And it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of coordination with TxDOT. We can't do flyovers at the entrance to the airport because it's in the approach for the runway. So we have height limitations. We can only go about 80 feet high where 71 is. So from existing grade. Yes.
I noticed on your procurement schedule slide that the full program is contingent on getting that full expenses. I'm curious if there's a timeline for when that is anticipated and if you're still planning to use the design and then build out when you can or what that looks like.
Yeah, there's definitely still a consensus that does need to happen. We all need to be on the same page. They're the stakeholders and ultimately would be paying for the program for a lot of it. And so they have to be on board with what we have going on as well. They pay a fee to us with that CPE rate and these and how we get funding from them. So we get landing fee rates from them, but we actually can't make any revenue off of the airlines. And so at the end of the year, if we have tracked how much that we've made, and if we have to balance out the books at the end of the year with the airlines. So that's a federal requirement. Yes, we would still continue to go through with design, and I may actually keep going through with designing more than what we've anticipated with the program, just so that we have kind of shelf-ready projects. We've noticed a lot of the funding that's happening with the feds is contingent upon, hey, do you have a project on the shelf? We have extra because other people aren't ready. And so we've been able to benefit from that. That's what happened with the baggage handling project and how we got federal funding for that. It wasn't anticipated in the beginning, and we had a project that was ready to go. So we're hoping to do some of that, yeah. But not a date on when that'll be
Okay.
together yet. Yes.
The map showing the leading service for the SAT and the SAT, you don't factor it there for into projects and for
Not as much. So a lot of the percentage that's coming up from there, it's pretty small. I mean, the core 5 counties around the airport in Austin is where most of our passengers are coming from. Most of what happens down there is the international component, right? So we have those nonstops over that they don't have yet. So there's opportunities for people to come up and do the nonstops out of Austin, and people prefer that, and just driving the hour and a half or whatever. Instead of flying from there to Houston and then Houston over, or there to Atlanta or whatnot. So does it play into some of the planning? Not necessarily. We really, I wish it did. I wish I could get into that amount of level of detail, but the city itself is growing so fast that that's a very small percentage of it.
I'm gonna add one more thing on here too. You mentioned the limitations on funding through bonding, but this organization does a lot of advocacy locally and on the national level. Most recently in September, we were pushing for an increase to the AIP funding, as well as a removal of the cap on the passenger facility charges. These are all funding mechanisms for the airport. So if there's anybody in the room who wants to get involved in any type of government affairs, advocacy, outreach, please contact me afterwards. But thank you, Jennifer. We've got a present here for you. Thank you so much for coming and speaking to us, and y'all can give a round of applause for us.
All right, we heard a little bit about this earlier, but what's our official head count for today?
Virtually have 14, so overall we have 7.
All right, so I did a little bit of a recap of the year in the newsletter, so you should check it out. A lot for us to all be proud of with ASCE this year. So thanks for volunteering, and hope you all have a happy holidays.
Thanks again.